Are, excuse me, are our two candidates for the vacant board seat here? They're in the other room? Okay, just wanted to make sure, because we're going to start with that, right? Well, we're going to, soon after. Yeah.
I don't know. That's probably for the new person. Well, Terry put me here.
Okay. I just want to make sure they're here.
Terry,
I want one of your campaigns.
ask her.
Can you give me one?
Still missing someone. Like,
Oh, you give me Junior's.
That was my seat first.
And are you going to make one for you?
we're good.
Okay. Well, give me Junior's. I have permission to put some stuff up.
Ready?
So,
Terry, you ready? Jennifer? Ready to go? Okay. I'd like to call this meeting of the Danville Area School Board to order. I'm going to start with the pledge and then a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, nation under God. Roll call, Terry.
Mr. Clauser.
Here.
Mrs. Cooper.
Here.
Dr. Green.
here.
Mrs. Heater.
Here.
Mr. Huron.
Here.
Mr. Reichard. Here. Mr. Vognetz.
Here.
Mr. Brookhart.
Here. Jennifer, when do we want to do our amendment? Okay, remind me, please. Thank you. Okay. 1.3, a reading of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I approve the minutes.
Questions? Comment? Terry?
Mr. Clauser.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
Dr. Green.
Yes.
Mrs. Heater.
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes.
Mr. Reichard. Yes. Mr. Vognetz.
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. Board Administrative reports.
We had a finance committee meeting on February 28th. Went over revenue projections for the upcoming year.
Thank you. Academic Affairs.
Yep, we had our meeting on March 8th, and we talked about the school handbooks, transitional kindergarten, the quotes for the primary school reading curriculum. We talked about high school AP participation data, the board's academic goals, and there was a big discussion on the gym class reduction and credits being proposed. And we did listen to several teachers and people that came to support not doing it, and an email was sent to all the board members with all the information.
Thank you. Buildings and Grounds, Mr. Reichard.
Yes, we had a meeting about the AstroTurf going to be again, and the is going to need some repairs. Kits
Thank you. Athletics and Extracurricular Activities Committee.
We had received information through the meetings with 3 different companies at this point in time. We are in the process of exploring different models and considering pricing for future consideration. Any of these would include the capability of running digital advertisements. Mr. Wynn provided information about the position of the weight room supervisor, a position which provides oversight and supervision of use but does not provide training programs for the students. And the committee was provided information about the cost and number of participants for each varsity sport. We had our meeting on March 2nd. The next meeting is April 6th.
Thank you. Health and Wellness Committee, Dr. Green.
There's going to be upcoming reports from each of the individual subcommittees, which will be presented to the board when everything is finalized about what their recommendations are surrounding the action the district should take for health and wellness and suicide prevention.
Okay, and we also have Health Insurance Committee, Dr. Green.
Nothing new to report there. That goes into negotiations, among other things.
Okay. The Columbia Montour Votech School, Mr. Clauser.
We hired an agency to help us with the search for a new director. There's another meeting on that tomorrow night, as he's going to be giving us an update. And I believe they have announced the position for the new special education director.
Okay, thank you. CSIU, Dr. Gatachu is no longer with us on the board. EITC, Mr. Huron.
Nothing to report right now. We're looking at an upcoming meeting. There's no date yet.
All right, thank you. And Head Start, Mr. Reichard.
Excuse me, Mr. Record, please turn on your microphone.
The Head Start's doing a self-assessment, learning what is going well and what things need a little more adjustments. They're looking at the things that need some strength, so things that need improvement, so that's what they're working on right now. And that's about all I have for that. Thank you.
Okay, and the CS Trust, that is mine, and we don't have another meeting until April, and when we get a new business manager, that person will also be involved with the CS Trust. Any questions on any of the committee reports? I want to thank everybody for all the time you put into these and the thorough nature of all the reports you bring back, and also really thank Dr. Need and Mr. Moser for all the time they're putting into the committees. You're functioning very well. Thank you. 2.2, school board vacancy. There has been a board vacancy created as of February 28, 2023 due to the resignation of Dr. Johannes Gatachu. The position was advertised as an opening, and the deadline to submit an application was Friday, March 3rd, 2023. This time we have two Danville citizens who have volunteered to serve on the board. We are going to give them each 5 minutes to come in and tell us why they should be the selection of the board. At the conclusion of that, we'll move to a vote to approve one of the two. And if we could get the first candidate in the room at this time. Once the two have had an opportunity to speak, we'll use a motion and a second and then a vote. Correct, Ms. Danbeck? Okay. Ms. Danbeck is our legal counsel.
And if you just press the button on the microphone, you can turn it to green so everyone will be able to hear you. Sometimes you have to hold it. There you go.
I think we got it.
Okay. Welcome.
Good to be here.
Would you introduce yourself, please? And then you have up to 5 minutes to talk to us about why you would be the best selection for us as a new member of the Danville Area School Board.
Yep, absolutely. My name is Sam Faulkner. I am a pediatric psychologist at Geisinger Medical Center. And so I guess the first thing I'll say is thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to be here and to talk a little bit about why I want to be a part of the a school board and the things that matter to me in this sort of role. Clinically, what I do on a daily basis is I work with children and families who are quite literally at the most vulnerable times in their lives. It's a crisis, right? It's a psychiatric, behavioral crisis. In that position, I think I have the privilege of trying to find a way to help these individuals navigate some of the most challenging moments that they may have ever experienced or ever will experience. What I have learned and what I have observed in my clinical work is that the crisis doesn't start the day before or the hour before they arrive. I think that the there are a series of factors that lead kids and families to difficult and challenging situations, and I think that the school has a really powerful impact on the health and the well-being of the individuals that I work with on a daily basis. I think that, you know, we are starting to really realize, not just through our own observations, but also through scientific research and the data, that we are quite literally in a mental health crisis for our pediatric population. And these things show up at school. They don't just show up at your primary care office. They don't just show up at in the emergency room. They show up in schools, and I think we in schools are uniquely positioned to help support these kiddos in a lot of different ways. And I have been really impressed with some of the things that I have seen come from the Danville Area School District, the Mental Health Task Force, which I've been able to be a part of. There's some really, really cool stuff happening. And I think that the heart of my work is, how do we comprehensively address the needs of our students? And I know without a doubt that we can't do that without also addressing their mental health. The data are clear, right? Like depression, even before the pandemic, depression rates in teenagers doubled. And all of the indicators following the pandemic show us that that the pandemic seems to have had a unique impact on our students and our children. And so my calling, my purpose, is to take not just my clinical expertise and my professional expertise, but also the work that I am doing in reaching out to our community partners, whether it's the CSIU or the CMSU, and bring my expertise as far as working and navigating systems, working in leadership roles, to try to serve a student body and a community in a way that can truly represent the mental health needs of our students. And I think that's, like I said, I keep saying the word calling because that's what it feels like to me. You know, I signed up for this role that I do clinically because I wanted to take care of kids who are struggling, and I want to do the same thing on the school board.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. We're going to get our next candidate.
We do have a couple seats up front if anyone wants to use this time to sneak to a chair.
Hello, welcome.
Hi.
Hi. You have 5 minutes to tell us why you would be the best candidate to be the new member of our Danville Area School Board.
Sure. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to get to share with you my intent to serve on the school board. I apologize for the notes. I was worried I was going to lose my voice because I've been fighting a cold. In case you're the closest person, if I lose my voice, it's up to you to read my notes. I have bad handwriting. No. I'm a little bit unusual. Although the people in this room would probably say very unusual in the fact that I've always wanted to serve on the school board. Since I was young, I was in high school, I served, I got to attend school board meetings as the student rep for my district. And so I've always been wanting to be involved. It was not for me a matter of my intent, but rather timing and when it would be a good time for me to be on the school board. I have dedicated my life to serving children, whether in my current role as a pediatric psychologist, or on boards of nonprofits. I have also worked in public school districts as short-term subs, long-term subs, God bless middle school teachers, behavior specialists, and school psychologists. So I've been well-versed working within the culture of school districts. While I haven't worked in any school districts since the 12 years of joining Danville, making this my community, I continue to be involved in schools because I think it's really important to the lives of children. It's a big system that they're involved in. So I continue to work with schools, consulting with teachers, supporting teachers and staff on how they can meet the social, emotional, and behavioral needs of their students. I'm also proud to be a member of the newly formed Mental Health Task Force here with the Danville School District. I certainly am well familiar with the complex challenges facing our students, teachers, and districts from all the different perspectives. Certainly there are no easy answers, but there's a lot of resources out there and data out there to guide and give direction. And it's very difficult in making decisions to meet the needs of the population of the school district versus meeting the needs of any individual student or any individual group at any given time. Certainly in my practice as a school psychologist, I see the need to respond in a very proactive and not just reactive way to the varied mental health needs of our students, as well as our teachers are there to support our students and are vital for the strength and well-being of our students become productive adults. I really prioritize the formation of community and school relationships. It is not the responsibility of just one system in these children's lives to impact. It is the responsibility of the entire community. It truly takes an entire village to grow a child into a productive, well-being adult. So it's important for the schools and the community resources to work together and to form the relationships and partnerships. Serving on the school board, I think, is a great privilege in order for me to continue to advocate for children and teachers while balancing all the complex demands of being financially responsible, making good decisions on curriculum, and implementing standards and evidence-based curriculum. It's a lot of competing choices there, and it's not easy, but it takes a lot of partnership, a teamwork approach, and looking at all the data and supporting it. So essentially, why be on the school board? School systems are truly one of the most significant and impactful, influential systems in the lives of our children. Being on the board provides me just an avenue for me to further impact the lives of students because I've dedicated my life to children. As a mom of 3 kids here in the school district, at certain times, having all three kids at 3 different buildings at one time, I've grown to really, truly love Danville. We chose Danville as our community for our children to go to and attend school. And by no means it's perfect, but there's a lot of great things here to build upon and continue. I don't think any school ever achieves final great status. It's a matter of just evolving the process over time and refining things as we get new updated standards and changing processes. So, thank you.
Thank you. Very well done. I think we're to the point where we can have any discussion, motion, second, and then have a vote. Do we have any discussion among the board members about the 2 candidates? I thought they were both excellent personally. Be fortunate to have either one of them, but that's really up to the will of the majority of the board. Any thoughts before we accept the motion?
I would just say I think they're both eminently qualified, and it's nice to have 2 people who are concerned about our kids' mental health running for the board. And they've both spent a fair time in the mental health committees working and donating their time. So either one that ends up on the board tonight, I think, would be great, personally, from my perspective. And the insight they bring will be very helpful.
Anyone else have anything they'd like to say? I know normally we do motion, second, then comment. I think this is a little different when you're appointing a board member, so I wanted to give you the chance to talk about either one of the candidates. Anything else? Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll motion.
Dr. Green? Or
I need to record the vote of each board member.
Okay.
So I'll call your names and you can tell me who you'd like to see in, and then we'll have. Is that okay?
You want to do it that way? Yeah, we'll do it. Okay, we'll do it that way then. That's
Jennifer, I
fine.
just said something. That's why I
Yeah,
was
she had given us a little
confused, but this
different
way.
guidance, but that's
Oh,
okay.
it's fine.
Go ahead, Terry.
Mr. Clauser.
We're picking a name.
Yes. Dr. Faulkner. Dr. Faulkner?
Mrs. Cooper.
Dr. Faulkner.
Dr. Green.
Dr. Faulkner.
Mrs. Heater.
Dr. Meadows.
Tanya Meadows.
Mr. Huron,
Dr. Faulkner.
Mr. Reichard,
Dr. Meadows.
Mr. Vognetz,
Dr. Meadows.
Mr. Brookhart.
Dr. Faulkner.
And we have 5 votes for Dr. Faulkner and 3 for Dr. Meadows.
Thank you, everyone. Ms. Dambeck, any further action needed on this? Okay, so we've now appointed
So then we'll have
Dr. Faulkner. Okay. So we're ready to move on. Okay. All right. We also have to elect a representative to serve at the Central Susquehanna Intermediate Unit, the Board of Directors, in place of Dr. Gatachu. I want to make a comment about that, but I want to start with, is there anybody that is volunteering for that, would like to do that before we start to make motions?
Wayne, I thought that was appointed by the board president.
Well, yeah, but we do eventually end up taking a vote on it, so.
Okay.
And I think in this particular case, and I'll tell you what I'm thinking. I'm willing to do this if no one else wants to do it, but I'd prefer to wait until April and see if Dr. Faulkner may be interested. Give him a chance to learn a little bit about what we do here, and that may be a way for him to get to know people from the other districts and know a little bit more about public schools and how they operate. So if there's an objection to that, I understand, but I would prefer that we defer it for a month, and we'd probably need a motion and a second and a vote to do that. Anybody have any thoughts? Does that sound okay?
Thanks, the fine idea.
You all right, Chris,
Yes.
Daryl,
Yes.
Andy, everybody on this side? Can I have a motion to defer this for
Yes.
1 month?
I'll make a
Daryl, okay. A second?
I'll
Second.
second.
June? Okay, any other comment? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Terry, we're going to put CSIU off for another month, okay? You're going to do what you need to do. Understood.
I, Samuel Faulkner,
I, Samuel Faulkner,
do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support,
do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support,
obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth.
obey. You might have to break it down.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
Obey and defend the I told you the first time.
Gary, you're making it hard.
Obey and defend the Constitution
Obey and defend the
of the
Constitution
United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of this Commonwealth,
of this Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
Perfect.
Oh,
So we get to that. This is what we're doing. Got it. So this is what we do now.
And then we say.
Can I keep the pen? Do you need that back?
Welcome.
What do you need for me?
Yes.
Nah.
Okay.
Welcome.
You should let me sit next to him. I need his help more than you do.
Oh, good water. I need that.
You ready? Item 3.4, amendment of the agenda. The board will take action to amend the agenda to add item 12.3, hire business manager, to the agenda. This agreement was recently reached and could not make it onto the posted agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
I motion. I second.
Any comments, questions? Terry? Excuse me?
I would recommend public comment.
Oh, okay. We're going to open up for public comment strictly on this item right now. I know a lot of people are here to speak later, but this is just strictly on amending the agenda on the business manager. So we'll get to everyone else soon. Okay? Any public comment on the amendment of the business manager hiring? Okay. Close public comment. Vote. We're ready.
Mrs. Cooper? Oh, yes. Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mrs. Heater,
Yes.
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz,
Yes.
Mr. Clauser,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. Number 4, we're going to have a superintendent's report. I also want to announce real quickly, we did have an executive session before I pass things on to Dr. Need. We discussed personnel items as well as negotiations. Dr. Need, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. If you go ahead, Jeff, the first thing is just a quick look at our enrollment report. There are not any significant changes from February, but you can just see an enrollment in each grade level and including Columbia Montverde Technical School. And then if you look at our next slide, you will see non-public enrollment. I did put last month's where we started breaking this down by category and this month so that you could see just a few slight changes. When we were looking at Christian schools last time, we did miss St. Cyril's on that number. So although it looks like an increase, we had just reported a number that didn't include St. Cyril's last time. So those numbers have stayed relatively stable from February to March. Then the next item that I'd like to discuss this evening is the board recently passed 5 goals. And they wrote a goal for each of the committees that the board is subdivided into. So we have an academic affairs goal, we have a finance goal, an athletics goal, and a buildings and grounds goal. And we also added a mental health goal because of the work that the mental health task force is doing. So the process we're following is to break down that goal first in a committee meeting level, and then once that's done for the first time, start discussing that goal publicly on a monthly basis in terms of updates. And so far, we've been able to have those discussions at both academic affairs and our buildings and grounds committees. So we'll take a look at those goals this evening. And so this will continue to be a regular part of my updates, kind of talking about where we are in achieving those goals. So if you go to the next, thank you. The academic affairs goal that the board has passed says make Danville the premier district in the region and one of the top 10 districts in the state within 3 years by making incremental increases in all areas that are part of the National Blue Ribbon Award process and the PA Act 13 assessment process. So we did share this at Academic Affairs and kind of broke down Blue Ribbon and Act 13. I won't go into the level of detail that we did in committee, but would just want the community to understand those processes. So in Pennsylvania, Act 13 is an assessment process for all Pennsylvania public schools. And it examines your attendance rate at your school, your graduation rate, and then it also looks at your achievement data in both the levels of proficiency that you reach and also the incremental growth that your school has. The Blue Ribbon Award process is a national process, but pretty much mirrors the process of Act 13. So therefore, what we're tasked with as an administrative team is how we can see growth in those Act 13 scores that we've shared previously. So I just wanted to name to the board some of the actions that we're already taking as a leadership team. And so attendance is one part of that measure. So one of the things that we've done this year is make sure that all of our attendance measures are consistent across our 4 buildings in terms of how we're coding attendance, how we're communicating with families about attendance, how we're holding attendance improvement meetings. And we're currently working with Mr. Ryan to develop what we would refer to as a data dashboard to make things like daily attendance rates and data over time about attendance really accessible to our building leaders. So that feels like an area that we want to meet, and we certainly want to express to the community that we can't teach your children if they're not in school, so we need kids in school. When we're thinking about that growth in our achievement scores, there are several areas that we're looking at and sort of tackling as an administrative team. One of those is curriculum. So we want to make sure we have appropriate curriculum in teachers' hands. So we're currently evaluating what curriculum we have, K-12 in all of our subject areas, and we're specifically tackling elementary literacy right now and rewriting those curriculum maps. So the board will see later this spring, throughout the summer and the fall, curriculum coming to the board for approval. We want to make sure what we're putting in front of students is the best that we can provide. Additionally, when we think about that academic achievement, we want to make sure that we're measuring where students are at so we can target our instruction. And you can do that with both criterion referenced assessments and also norm referenced assessments, so we can understand if there are specific standards that students are missing. And we also can see where our students are tracking against other students. So we will be putting out an assessment calendar for next school year where we will have deliberate testing in all of our tested subjects throughout the year. That's not like stressful multi-day things, but are just clear target points throughout the marking period that tell us as teachers how we should adjust our instruction. And we'll be using our professional development time with educators to look at that assessment data to understand what it's telling us and how we want to change our instruction. So you're going to start hearing from us about those curricular changes and those assessment changes as we come forward. So just wanted the board as a whole to hear about how we'll be attacking that board goal. The next board goal to address, Jeff, if you could go to the next one, is our buildings and grounds goal. So as a board, you approved that we would want to maintain and upgrade our facilities with the intent of providing the best possible education at a reasonable cost to district taxpayers. So you see a real marriage there to our finance goal. So we are already examining. We have a new buildings and grounds director, and Tim has really hit the ground running, so we appreciate his work. So we're already looking at, Mr. Reichard mentioned track updates. We're already starting to look at existing facilities. 3 projects that will start sooner than later are the fixing of the track, where there's a few patch areas, as well as the washing and restriping of the track, repairs to both the primary school and Liberty Valley's playgrounds. We ultimately want to create a long-term facilities maintenance plan for our facilities. Thank you, Jeff. You could go ahead to the next screen. I did, as I usually like to do, want to also share some district highlights. So if building administrators want to get ready to pass the microphone a little bit, we can start with the high school sharing some things and sort of hot off the presses, I guess, at the high school that didn't necessarily hit the newsletter. Jeff, if you want to pull up their newsletter, is we do have quite a few swimmers and divers who are in states, like as we speak, over the next couple of days. And I know there could be more award winners, but I know Brenna Ross, who's a senior at Danville High School, is a state champion as of this afternoon. So congratulations to her. And I believe we have a relay going to state finals, and there may be some, certainly not all of the events have happened, and we have some divers who will be competing soon too. So excited for those athletes, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Wynn to talk about some of the other great things at the high school.
So I was going to mention, excuse me, swimming and diving. So again, congratulations to Brenna and the rest of our swimmers and divers. The play, The Addams Family, just concluded about 2 weeks ago. So 3 performances, if anyone was at that. I know I saw some familiar faces who I saw at the play. Another outstanding performance by a new leader in Auburn Johnson. But again, very well done, very well attended, and very proud of our students who were on stage and also behind stage as well. Other winter sports, so all of our other winter sports have concluded. Bowling was finishing up and heading into regionals and such, and our boys basketball team concluded with a district championship just a year or so ago. And then let's see, and then we have some Planet members here who are going to talk about the park that they're participating in at the middle school, and I know Mr. Haravi is going to do a presentation. And then Jeff, do you want to talk about esports? Because I know that didn't make the
As far as the esports go, this year we had our first in-person tournament. We have 8 schools now that are part of the esports program. Plus, we're expanding right now to chess. So it was a really good turnout, and want to thank the CSIU for hosting it. It was a great event. all the kids had a great time. It was a lot of fun, and we crowned Berwick as this year's CSEL champion. So that's it.
Thank you. We could take a look at the middle school's newsletter and just would like to just congratulate our high schoolers overall. There was an assembly last week to recognize all of the accomplishments that have happened in this winter season, and it's certainly extensive. We should be really proud as a district for all the great things our students are doing. And Mr. Snover, things at the middle school.
All right. I'm not going to talk too much about the community park project because Mr. Haravi and Mrs. Highstand and they're going to talk a little bit about what's going on there. So I'll just jump down. First, we do have PSSA testing coming up in just a little over a month. So the home and school, we're going to put something out on our Facebook page. They are going to be collecting snacks so students can have snacks during the PSSA testing in the end of April here. And if you could scroll down a little bit farther there, Jeff, to kind of piggyback on what Mr. Wynn said with the high school finishing up the Addams Family. The middle school DMS Drama Club is getting ready to present Sherlock Holmes in April. That'll be April 20th through the 22nd in the middle school auditorium. So we look forward to hopefully seeing some of you coming to support the middle school students as well. They've been working very hard since this fall to prepare for Sherlock Holmes. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Snover. We can take a look at Liberty Valley. And our newsletters are going home to families on the first Monday of the month to just talk about happenings that have happened and celebrate students and also future happenings. So for families out there, that's when you can look to receive those.
Okay, thank you. Our fifth graders were offered a project, a presidential project this past month. So Mr. Long led the other fifth grade teachers and again the students through the creation of a presidential, hall in the library area. So that top right picture extends all the way down the library hallway. So the fifth graders really rose to the occasion. It was a 5-week take-home project. And essentially, it was really on their own. If they wanted to participate, they could. And again, they showed up and really knocked it out of the park. So we're proud of our fifth graders for really filling up the library hallway and turning it into a hall of presidents. On the bottom of the first page, we celebrated our 100th day of school. I think today may have been 123, somewhere around there. So a little while ago, some of our students dressed up as some older people with their canes and walkers. And there's just a few of them there on the front page of the newsletter. Up top is that's a little spotlight to introduce some of our teachers and staff members to our Liberty Valley family. That one happens to be for this month, Mr. Chris Stauber. He is a third grade teacher there with his sons. And then just at the bottom of the last page on the newsletter is we're going to be including our Forged in Fire award winners. So that is our PBIS program where we forge our best selves at Liberty Valley. So our kids that are identified by their homeroom teachers as a Forged in Fire award winner get a certificate, get recognized in front of the student body and here on the newsletter. So in the future, we'll be putting pictures on there of our winners. Thank you.
Great. I know students really look forward to those. And Mrs. Willoughby will share some happenings at the primary school where they also have those monthly winners. And I happened to be in the primary school office recently, and a kindergartner got a train car, which is one of their other rewards, and was so excited to tell me what it was for. And then was like, maybe I'll get a Forged in Fire award. So they're definitely excited.
Yep. So at the primary school, we too celebrated the 100th day of school. Children dressed up. It's adorable at the primary level. So we see many little costumes throughout the hallways, and students engage in activities. Typically, they make necklaces with 100 Fruit Loops or what have you. And then moving to the next page, we celebrated Read Across America with some different activities. We had a theme week, so teachers and staff members, involved themselves with students. We also had a therapy dog come in named Drago, and his handler Amy read Dr. Seuss books to us, so it was very fun and exciting for the students. We have been participating in the Kids Heart Challenge all month. Mrs. Seidel promotes this, and we raised, I think she told me today, about $8,000 to donate to the American Red Cross. So that's a big accomplishment for our students and families. And in addition to that activity, we had some very special doctors come in and visit some classrooms and teach our students about the importance of heart health and how hearts work. Thank you, Dr. Green.
Thank you for putting the more handsome Dr. Mead on there instead of me.
Didn't have your pictures yet.
He's also a much better physician, so
Yeah.
you picked
Maybe
the right.
you'll be next.
You picked the right horse.
And then, of course, we celebrated or participated, excuse me, in Hunter's Jersey Day for the Hunter's Heart and Hustle Foundation. All students were excited to participate in that. And on the last page, of course, we have our upcoming events. So there's many things happening in the upcoming months. So thank you.
Thank you. Always a joy to be in the primary school. And then Mrs. Marshall can tell us about what's happening at Head Start these days. Always great things there, too.
So in Head Start, this is kind of a newsletter that we do for staff and stuff that is coming up. Some things that we have done in Head Start is we also participate in the Read Across America. Had some people come in to read Dr. Seuss books to our children. They had special activities and dressing up. It's their favorite time, pajama day. They could wear their pajamas every day. It is absolutely their favorite time. So with our teachers in March are going out and doing home visits to all of the families. It is a wonderful time for togetherness to come and talk about what you want your child to learn, where you want them to go next. All the teachers go out and do all the home visits. The kids are ecstatic to see the teachers in their home because they think they live in this building, but they really don't. So they are just so excited to show them their bedroom and show them all their toys, and it is just really a neat connection between home and school. We have some upcoming dates. We have some FST meetings. We have kindergarten transition coming up in May, where we work with Mrs. Willoughby and transition our kids into kindergarten. We have a really neat program that is coming up with that. So just a lot of neat things. We do not have clubs at Head Start, but we always have a lot of fun things going on. We had a staff member who had a baby just recently in Head Start. Do not drink the water. Do not come near us. We have like a staff at 25, and I think there's four, not me, pregnant. So it has been very exciting. We had a really neat Ready Rosie math night. Ready Rosie is our parenting curriculum. We had families come in and learn about math and how to teach math at home. Preschoolers learning math is foreign to some people, but it is the basic skills of math. So really, the families got to take home some simple take-home activities for them to do in the home and to kind of show how just using things in the home, you don't have to buy workbooks or anything expensive, is just fun and being part of learning. And we celebrated all month, just Black History Month, just highlighting some educators, some different people that even in Head Start, we've had a lot of African American people in our, like even one was a Senate on our board. So it just has been really just kind of eye-opening for all of that. I think that's it.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Marshall. And Mr. Ryan, on the next slide, there's some pictures that I just got today and had to quick throw them in because I was excited about this. So just would love to shout out Tabitha White, who is, so back one, sorry, Mr. Ryan. There we go. Tabitha White is a parent in our school district and also works at Geisinger. And she had the idea that in the pediatric recovery room, so when little ones come out of surgery and they're laying in bed and they're looking up at the ceiling, she reached out to our art department here at the high school. And so Danville High School students painted these ceiling tiles. And so in every sort of recovery bay right now, when a child comes out, they get to see artwork above them. And she shared just some of those pictures with board members and myself today and was certainly moved by that. And they've gotten such great feedback. I think that they're going to spread this love sort of throughout the Children's Hospital and other departments, and we'll be reaching out to universities and other school districts in addition to coming back to Danville for some more artwork. So really proud of our art students for contributing to such a great cause. And then if you go to the next slide, Mr. Ryan, I did just want to share a couple updates to school board members just to educate you on a few things that have happened recently. So the first one is about charter school resolution. So right now, in terms of a funding formula, and you can go to the next screen for this, Mr. Ryan, if a student, and what we face here in the Danville Area School District is that students can choose to go to a cyber charter school, and the districts have to pay that cyber school tuition. So there are currently over 400 school districts in Pennsylvania that have adopted a resolution. I do have that attached that board members can read, just calling upon the PA General Assembly to meaningfully reform the funding system to more adequately reflect the cost that it actually takes to educate that student. There's a lot of, right now, to be honest, like inflation in those costs for what they're actually spending. And just for perspective, in Danville, and this is a reduced number from where we were in COVID, we're certainly actively trying to bring students back to our program, and I'm really proud of our cyber program. So even if a student wants to pursue cyber education, I think we have very high quality cyber education in Danville. But just to put it in perspective, we do have for the 23-24 school year budgeted approximately $800,000 for regular and special education cyber charter placements. That's based on where the trends have been over the last few years, so that we would be adequately covered. So that's a sample resolution that PSBA is asking school districts to pass, and is something that we could put on our April agenda if we were interested in passing a resolution like that.
Is the board interested in seeing a resolution like that? I think I saw, was it over 90% of the districts in Pennsylvania have approved?
There are over 400 right now, yes.
Okay, yeah.
So
okay.
we'd certainly
Thank you.
be in the majority by doing so.
Yeah, okay. Do we want this in April? Do we want to see this?
Sure.
Okay, yeah. We can always vote no if we don't want to do it, but I think it would be good
we'll
to
add
at least
that
have
to
an
the
option.
agenda.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then if you go to the next slide, did want to share that our new governor had a budget proposal live on March 7th, and certainly a considerable amount of time in that proposal was spent talking about education. So just wanted to go over a few of the highlights from that presentation. So he is proposing a $567.4 million increase for basic ed funding. Basic ed funding is where the majority of our state funding for education comes from. We're going to look at revenue sources next for the district, and so you'll see that the way revenue for a school district works is we get the majority from local, then next state, and very minimally from federal. So the idea that there's a proposed budget increase in basic ed funding would be good news. It's certainly not passed yet, but that would be the governor's proposed recommendation. Within that, he is interested in continuing the universal free breakfast program. He is interested in continuing school safety and security grants. We've applied for that and are waiting for approval. There's been a lot of delays, but I'm feeling like we'll probably get the money we applied for this year. He is proposing money for grants around environmental repairs and upgrades, so we could potentially apply for something like that. And part of his budget proposal was to give tax credits to individuals looking to get licensed to work in schools, knowing it's becoming harder to find educators, nurses, school police officers, excuse me. So those are the things that would be part of that basic ed funding package, that proposed budget. He is also, our next kind of largest revenue line item from the state would be our special ed funding, and he's also proposing an increase in special ed funding. And then he's adding another category. So right now in the safety and security grants that are available through the state, you can apply a little bit of that money to mental health resources, but a lot of it is more straight security and safety, if you will. But he is proposing to have $500 million in funding for specific mental health grants and supports. And in his speech really was talking about those being targeted to personnel within mental health. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And I think we would certainly see need for money like that here in Danville. So happy to hear Governor Shapiro prioritizing that. If you go to the next screen, in terms of they've actually laid out if his proposal went through exactly what the numbers would be for every school district. So that basic ed funding we talked about, this year we got basic ed funding plus what they called level up funding. And we were sort of guaranteed a straight line item. So this past year we've had 8.1. So we initially at that February 28th finance meeting did straight, like flat funding for that revenue and had that at 8.1. Governor Shapiro is proposing that Danville's basic ed funding would go up to 8.6 million. You'll see when we look at revenues that we're kind of projecting somewhere in between the two to be conservative because we don't know if that his proposal will, pass completely, but we were feeling comfortable to go above 8.1 in our projections. Special ed funding, similar. So our current state special ed funding is 1.56 million. The proposed increase for Danville specifically would take us to 1.64 million, and we're projecting revenues in the middle there just to be conservative. So, and I noted that there. On March 23rd, the Education Department budget hearing takes place. So by next board meeting, we may have more information about where these numbers land more officially. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions about that. This naturally leads us into our revenues as we started talking about where we are projecting revenues slightly less than the governor so that we can be conservative. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Moser, and he's going to walk us through those preliminary revenues. So these were presented at the last Finance Committee meeting, if there's anyone that attended that, with some slight increases. And we'd shared at that Finance Committee that it was kind of like looking through a camera lens that's still blurry, and sort of throughout the spring we would keep zooming in as we get more information about specifically where those revenue sources would be. So I would say we're less blurry than we were on February 28th, but we're not all the way at a clear picture yet, if that makes sense. But we're less blurry in a good way. Numbers are going up.
Yeah, so again, as Dr. Need said, those preliminary revenues, that's a number that will continuously change until we pass a budget. And quite frankly, it is likely to change even after we pass a budget as a district, because we have to pass a budget. The state doesn't necessarily have to pass the budget on time. So as we look at this, revenues are a little bit more difficult than expenditures because there are just certain factors we cannot control. While we are hopeful that those revenues continue to go in the direction that would close, or that would raise in our favor, we just don't know for sure yet at this point in time. But essentially, just for informational purposes, when we talk about revenue sources for public schools, we have three main categories, quite frankly. You have federal, state, and local. And so as we go through this, you'll see how much of a percentage and proportion each of those accounts for in our yearly budget, at least in terms of projection for the 23-24 fiscal year. So federal revenue projections, again, right now there's ESSER funds. Of course, we have a nearly $800,000 reduction going into next year, but there is still ESSER funding on the books for next year, about $430,000 that we will receive from the federal government for that, and then that will be the end. We have consistent title funding, which is titles 1, 2, 3, and 4. Really 3, we're in a consortium, and that goes to the IU. That's for English language learners. Title 1 is your biggest chunk of that. That money, while it can fluctuate, generally speaking, it stays relatively static year to year. You don't see drastic increases or decreases, unless, of course, you see a major shift in your student demographics from one year to the next, which doesn't necessarily happen very frequently. What happens more frequently is that over a 10-15 year, you can see a slight gradual increase keeping up with your student demographic system. And then there's access and medical assistance reimbursements. I would caution us to think about these. I mean, they are revenues. They are booked as revenues when we do a budget, when we do an AFR. But the reality is that we're getting money back that we've actually spent, or at least a percentage of what we spent. So reimbursements go up. It's not necessarily a good thing in revenues, because that means your costs also went up. So it's always kind of levied against that. But essentially for this year, or for next year, for the 23-24 school year, we are looking at right now a federal revenue projection of just slightly over $1 million. So if we can go to the next slide, please, Mr. Ryan. Here you can see where those big items are. The column all the way on the right is what we have projected. Nothing in there has changed since our finance committee meeting. I would not expect anything under the federal revenues to change between now and the time that we pass a budget. But you can kind of see where those figures are. Title I, again, $460,000, but that is very dedicated spending. As a targeted school, we have certain parameters as to how we spend that money within the Danville Primary School. So if we can go to the next slide, state revenue projections. So as a source, as Dr. Need said earlier, you have basic education funding. That is the biggest ticketed item. So any increase to that is certainly welcome in terms of how do we pay the bills. Again, Governor Shapiro's proposal would allocate slightly over I think it's about $560,000 to Danville of new funding. What we have done is allocate basically now in our most current projections shown an increase of $350,000 from where we were at our finance committee meeting. So that's going to be one of the big ones that we will certainly be keeping an eye on as it goes through the budget committee hearings and gets closer and closer to a realized and passed state budget. Special education funding, as Dr. Need mentioned, dovetails right into that proposal as well. Transportation subsidy, again, that is a reimbursement. So anything what we spend on transportation for our pupils, we get a reimbursable amount back from the state. It is based on a very, very complex, convoluted formula that takes into account a lot of factors, including how old the buses are, and how recently you have bought new ones, and total mileage and total cost. Essentially what we look at for revenue projections is approximately 50%. That's usually fairly safe in terms of what you're going to get back. So again, if that number goes up, it means we're also spending more on transportation. So, and then there are plan-con subsidies. So there used to be planned construction school projects that were a certain percentage was reimbursed by the state for those construction projects. Most plan-con projects have gone by the wayside at this point in time. However, when you have current debt that you're paying off from years ago, we have certain projects that were plan-con approved, which means we have certain projects that we're paying on a bond, both principal and interest, as it was structured, that we still qualify for some level of reimbursement and subsidies for. So this is one where the hiring of a business manager will really help us dig into the bottom of exactly what is eligible for those subsidies and what is not. Homestead, farmstead reimbursements is property tax relief reimbursements, mostly funded through Pennsylvania Casino and Gaming. That's where most of that money comes from, and then it is allocated. You'll see that we actually increased this to go flat to this current year where we're at. So we do know what we are receiving in 22-23, and we were originally $100,000 below that in our revenue projections at the last finance committee, but we are now comfortable raising that to go essentially flat from where it is for this year. That's another one we're going to keep an eye on. There is talk. There are stories that we have been able to read and get our hands on, where some are suggesting that we may even see a fairly significant increase in that number. So we will continue to pay attention to that to see how it goes in the future. Ready to Learn block grant is, again, that is essentially a very static number. I think we've received very, very close numbers, if not exact numbers, over the last 6 years. So it's kind of, consistent. What we have dedicated that money to in Danville is to providing full-day kindergarten, which is absolutely an allowable use under the Ready to Learn block grant. And then again, state shares of Social Security, Medicare costs, and the PCERS retirement costs for employees. Again, I would say all three of those we are likely to see increased revenues, but word of caution, they're reimbursements. So based on a percentage, state basically pays us 50% of our costs back. So if we're getting more, it means we're also spending more on the front end. So it shows up as more revenue, but until we look at it as an entire picture as an actual expenditure as well, we shouldn't get excited about, from a budgetary standpoint, about a rise in the revenue from those categories that are actually reimbursements. So federal, state, and then finally, we can go on. You see the yellow, I kind of touched on those. So those are the ones that we have since Finance Committee, the ones that are highlighted in that column all the way to the right, the ones that we have shown an increase in our projections between the Finance Committee meeting and tonight. And then finally, actually our biggest piece of the pie comes from our local revenue, which is through, again, real estate taxes, the earned income tax, real estate transfer taxes, delinquent real estate taxes, pass-through money from the federal government that goes through, contributions and donations. It is important to note that Geisinger, we do have an arrangement with Geisinger in which they make a contribution. Something else that I think that the board will want to be paying attention to in the news, and we'll probably be able to provide you a more sound update, but always watching for court cases that affect public education and the public domain at large. Out-of-district student tuition, so those are students who do not live within the Danville Area School District borders but attend school here through one of our PDE-approved CTE programs. We receive tuitions from them. And then LEA activities, that's basically events that we pay for to go and watch. That is money that is booked then as a revenue. So you can see the 25.7 million almost dollars, by far the largest portion of revenues out there. If we go to the next slide, since the Finance Committee meeting, real estate taxes obviously is, can we go, are we able to go over? 23-24 has been cut off there. Oh, okay, if we can go back, I think I can speak to most of what is important here. The biggest change right now in our local revenue would be to line 6151, the current Act 511 earned income taxes. What you can see is that for this current fiscal year, budgeted is about 7.8 essentially. What we have are the first two quarters because they're essentially always a quarter behind. So just last week, we actually received our report for quarter 4 of last calendar year. So we don't have quarter 1 of this year yet. We won't receive that until June. What I can tell you is that in the first 2 quarters, essentially it's somewhere around $3.8 to $3.9 million that has been collected. If you play that out and multiply that, you're looking at hitting the 7.8 range. However, historically, the first quarter tends to see a significant bump because most people who work in the private sector, when they receive raises, actually receive that raise at the turn of the calendar year, unlike school districts where it's a fiscal year. So we're comfortable. Actually, we believe we're going to collect over what was budgeted for this year, and then for the projection that we actually have, which is unfortunately not on that slide, we are going at a
8.1
at a 3% increase, which brings us to $8.1 million collected as a projection for next year. That could go higher. Unfortunately, we will not have any more actionable data on where EIT lands until after we pass a budget as a district, because we won't get that until probably late June, maybe not even until the last quarter until July. And then what happens is those get booked as previous years, and we make journal entry corrections. And then obviously there's the real estate transfer tax. I can tell you we are pretty much on target for what was budgeted this year. We're pretty close with about 65% already, or I'm sorry, about 65% of the fiscal year collected. So the big ones, though, to keep an eye on, obviously real estate taxes. We don't anticipate very significant bump there, but there certainly is likely to be a bump there.
Right, we're currently saying 14,750 based on what's come in, so a slight increase from what we presented February 28th.
Yeah. And then, but the EITC is where EIT tax is where we see we certainly do project a significant bump there.
Okay.
And so the last slide, I believe, if we go to the next one, Mr. Ryan, this actually shows you a proportion of where funding comes from for the Danville Area School District. You see local revenues; they make up 59% of our total revenue, which is not as high as a lot of districts, believe it or not. It is right around that state average. You see federal revenues at 2.5%, and then state revenues at almost 39%. Do board members have any questions about any of those revenue numbers? We are getting a clearer and more positive picture as we move closer to a full budget.
Once again, I want to thank Mr. Moser and Dr. Need. In the absence of a business manager, the extra work that you put into this, really appreciated, and the detail you provide for us. I really feel very much kept up to date on where the district stands fiscally.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Good. Dr. Need, anything else on the superintendent's report? Anything else you want?
Yeah, wrapping up the superintendent's report.
Okay.
There have been certainly we have fielded questions and comments from community members in regard to the football coach selection process. I just want to reiterate what that process actually looks like for the public at large. In our administrative regulations for hiring practices, it starts with all interview committee members receive all application materials at the same time. Interview committee members are not board members. They are made up of district faculty and staff, administration, and all representatives there. Every type of position in the district actually has an outlined structure for a committee in those administrative regulations, from a building principal to a paraprofessional, and that also includes obviously coaches and anywhere in between. From there is a standardized screening tool that all interview committee members use to actually evaluate coaching applications. That is used to determine the candidates who will receive a first round interview. As far as the interview process itself, we ask all candidates standardized questions. All interview committee members score the candidates. Those scores are used to guide the discussion for the committee. And then what happens from there is that information, that committee advises the superintendent on the findings of the interview committee. At that point in time, the superintendent makes a decision of whether or not that will be the recommendation to the board. However, there is also a process for vetting all candidates as well. And what I can tell you is that essentially that vetting process is calling all listed references for a candidate for any position, as well as verified unlisted persons who would have firsthand knowledge of that individual's work experience as it relates to the open position in question. So we would call former supervisors, former superintendents, possibly former colleagues with whom we know we can verify that person has at some point in time worked. So we are not relying solely on the 3 to 5 references that a candidate will always list, because as we are aware, if you're listing 3 to 5 candidates on your resume, more than likely we can expect positive results from those calls. So we not only call those, we also call people that we know that person would have worked with, that a good deal of time and energy is focused on making sure that we vet candidates as well as we possibly can.
Thank you. That concludes our
Okay. You look like you have a question.
Yeah,
sorry.
I do. So any candidate that's brought before the board has been extensively vetted for any of the either rumors or allegations that in the past have been brought against those candidates.
Absolutely.
And how many people did you talk to?
How many people did I talk to for the football coaching position?
Yeah. Sorry to put you on the spot.
At least 7.
And this is a completely standardized process, meaning it's the process that we go through for hiring anyone, correct?
Any position in the district, yes.
And the board members themselves, what say do they have in this process?
Board members are invited to observe any interview process. Board members do not ask any questions. Board members do not score candidates, and board members are not part of the recommendation process.
So the recommendation to the board is made in absence of the influence of any of the board members?
Correct.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Our part is now. Okay. Anything else?
No, thank you.
All right, we're going to move into public comment. I wanted to say one more thing real quickly. I know people are impatient. I understand. The one goal, I wanted to point out that the high school is actually 15th in the state, which I think is fantastic on the Act 13. So they're like there already out of over 700 high schools. There's 500 districts, but places like Philly have lots of high schools. So great job on that. We're moving on the other ones and getting where we need to go. Public comment, we're guided by policy 903. Policy 903 gives you 3 minutes to speak on whatever topic that's on the agenda that you would like to speak about tonight. We're going to take people one by one. We'll allow you those 3 minutes. You are to address the board as a whole. We are advised on personnel issues that we're not going to talk about anything specific. We may not answer, but you may make your comments to us as a group, and we'll open it to public comment at this time. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little feedback here. Mr. May, you're first. Come on up.
I'm Randy May, Danville community member, former teacher, coach, not football, basketball. And I'd like to just share with you a few of my thoughts regarding this process. First of all, Coach Brennan, we all know, is an outstanding coach. Is this thing on?
Yes.
Okay. And he came here at a perfect time. We had incredible talent here in our school district in the way of players and in the way of assistant coaches. He brought some coaches with him, but everything played out perfect. We just missed it by 3 inches, a field goal. Not to be blamed on any kid here. I went up to this young man who missed the field goal after the game, and I talked to him a little bit. I don't know him, but he had to be hurting. This is a tremendous football program, basketball, all of our sports. It takes an entire staff of exemplary people to produce winning teams, like the one our town has enjoyed the last number of years. I'm not here to advance the name of any coach, but I do have to tell you a few things that I observed after that heartbreaking loss to Wyomissing. I observed coaches helping players to cope with the emotional outcome of that game. And the father of one player, when his son came up to him after the game and his grandfather stood there and he said to his son, "Keep your head up, son, when you go in that locker room." He's also an assistant coach and an applicant for the position. Regarding the selection process, were Coach Brennan's evaluations of the assistant coaches submitted to the committee? Were they given and shared with the actual assistant coaches? Some coaches told me no. I assume the typical background checks, evaluations, and character references were part of the process for all applicants. What else was a factor in the process? I don't need to have you answer me that. Because I don't want to take my 3 minutes up. But I just think it's things that have to be considered. I gather the selection committee was looking for an applicant with head coaching experience and a highly successful career, because that's what we have here. Nothing else is acceptable. I understand that there were very few head coaches that applied for the job. What existing head coach would want the job after Brennan did what he did here for 3 years? Head coaches that haven't been there before. Why would an assistant want it? Because he's never been there before. This is his opportunity, an assistant coach. As I talked to different people in Montoursville and around during the basketball playoffs, I knew some of the coaches, and I suspect that the head coaches in our region knew full well that Danville already had an outstanding group of assistant coaches to select from.
I'm sorry. I thought it was just a cell phone going off.
Oh.
Mr. May, if you could wrap it up, okay?
Can I
Please.
zip it up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Did the committee not give serious consideration to an assistant coach? I would like to see, first of all, Danville isn't interested apparently in taking an assistant coach into the head coaching job at this time. But please interview our assistant coaches now. Validation is a vital part of the interview process. We've all learned that when we became teachers and administrators. An opportunity for the committee to help these assistants feel heard and understood, showing interest in what they have to say, and valuing their emotions, their words, and their thoughts. Please consider one of the assistants to be an interim head coach for the 2023 year. And if the interim gets the job done, then will you find the right coach? I have to say one thing quick, if you would let me.
Go ahead, Mr. May.
I talked to Mr. Moser. I asked him, when the assistant coaches were told that they did not have the job, were they also told why they didn't get the job? What they needed to do in order to get a head coaching job in the sport? No was the answer.
Thank you, Mr. May.
And that's part of the process in any school. You tell a teacher you didn't get the head of the department job. You didn't get the assistant administrator's job. Why? Here's why you didn't. You got to grow. Thank you.
Again, we appreciate it. Thank you. Who would like to speak next? Other speakers tonight? Football or any other agenda items? Mr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you. Tim Fitzgerald, Danville. I'd just like to add two comments. One is I totally agree with Mr. May that the considerations for hiring a coach certainly would be the technical capabilities in that role, but also the first concern for a school district should be how they educate and develop those children, not just in the football field, as otherwise as well. And I hope the committee considered that, and I think the current coaches really did an excellent job, as Mr. May had noted. The other question I have for the board, if they consider it, is I noted that you give a great agenda with additional items, but the item that is attached for the football coaching position was not available as all the others were. Could that be described to the public? Thank you.
Jennifer? Did you mean the football coach or the business manager?
It is listed in the agenda. What's missing on the site? I'm sorry.
Oh, so there's an interview process summary that's attached to it.
Yes.
Oh. That is what Mr. Moser summarized, but you could share again.
Yeah, essentially that says the date of the interview, the recommended candidate, and who was involved. It lists actually what positions were in the interview process.
Next speaker? Yes, sir. Give us your name, please.
I'm Brad Deal. My son's on the football team. I don't know Carl Major. I know he's the candidate that's being selected, voted on. But if it's an interim position right now, given a trial basis, I'd like you to consider, and my son has 2 years left. One of those years could be totally wasted on an interim coach. And what's the difference between a coach that doesn't have the head coaching experience but has a very good record and a head coach who does have some track record that maybe he's not the best for the kids? Maybe he is, I don't know, but from what I'm hearing, I'm a little concerned. So I think that should be concerned because it could waste a whole a whole year. High school football doesn't last long. And I want the best for what happens to my son in the next 2 years. Thanks.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is a regular coaching appointment. This is a regular coaching appointment. I don't believe the word interim is in the motion, is it?
No.
No, okay. It's a regular coaching position. Ms. Fitzgerald.
Thank you. Erin Fitzgerald, my children are in the school district. They are not football players. But I just want to talk about the importance of a coach being present in the school. My children are involved in the band, they're involved in sports, in a lot of different clubs. And oftentimes when they have difficulties, when they need someone to talk to, we all talked about mental health and the importance of that today. There are many times when they need someone to talk to, they need to talk about an issue that they're having. They don't feel particularly comfortable coming to anyone, but they have always felt comfortable coming to a coach. And to have a coach as a presence in the school where the child can drop by and talk to them about something that's happening on or off the field, it's immeasurable. I think we really should consider that.
Thank you. Additional speakers? Anyone else? This or any other agenda item? Mr. May, I think we know where you stand. We have two people. Yes.
Hi, Jonna Hockenbrock, and I'm going to let Mr. May take my 3 minutes.
Okay. Mr. May, I don't know if this is permissible or not, but we're going to go with it, all right? There's no playbook for this.
Okay.
You know, I've thought about that earlier. Can we just do that?
Yeah, so the board would just do.
Is there any objection to that? Okay, can we have a motion to suspend policy 903 to allow additional time? Anybody make that motion? Second? Any objection? Okay, Mr. May, you may speak, and I'd ask you please to be brief, but you don't have a 3-minute limit on you.
Yeah. I did this at home, it was 3 minutes. I didn't have to look at all you people.
That's okay.
This has become a football family here in Danville. The coaches, the players, their parents. But now Coach Brennan's leaving, and the family's not the same. When families become fractured, people hurt. Young people really hurt. Let's keep the remaining family of coaches intact, selecting one to be the interim head coach so our young people can continue the positive experience that they've enjoyed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. May. Sure. I saw someone else up. Come on up.
Hello, my name is Chelsea Eck, and I teach health and physical education at the high school. I would first like to start off by thanking Dr. Green and Ms. Heater for a great discussion about the importance of physical education at the last academic affairs meeting. On behalf of the entire health and phys ed department, we strongly believe in the importance of health and physical education, which has propelled each of us into this profession, in the hopes of inspiring young people to adopt healthy lifestyles. The values, principles, and concepts associated with a quality health and physical education program surpass the boundaries of the gymnasium and the playing fields. Health and physical education is a catalyst for learning in all content areas. The CDC recommends students get 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous exercise 7 days a week. Furthermore, they recommend that schools should be providing 225 minutes per week of physical education, which accounts for close to half of the total recommendation. This recommendation was designed on the basis that youth spend a significant portion of their time in school, so therefore, school is the most important place for physical activity interventions. By lowering the credit, students will only receive 55 hours of the 540-hour recommendation over the course of 4 years. It is our position that we will not have sufficient time for our students to achieve proficient levels on the standards as required by Pennsylvania School Code. Danville's current requirements are already extremely low compared to other school districts in the area. Berwick, Milton, and Lewisburg provide 2 credits of PE to their students, while Central Columbia and Selinsgrove provide 1.5 credits. If the board lowers to a half a credit, we will have the lowest requirement compared to any other school district. Since the last credit reduction took place in 2012, we've seen a 6% increase in overweight and obese students in the high school. There are obviously many contributing factors to this statistic. Poor dietary habits, less physical activity both inside and outside of school, technology use, COVID, etc. Regardless of the contributing factors, now is not a time to be reducing the PE credit. We should actually be increasing the PE credit. Research shows that physical activity improves quality of sleep, it reduces anxiety and depression, reduces blood pressure, lowers your risk of heart disease, stroke, and type 2 diabetes. It lowers your risk of 8 different types of cancers, improves bone density, and helps maintain healthy weight. Students who are more physically active also perform better academically, they have better school attendance, and they exhibit better classroom behaviors. Unfortunately, students today are experiencing more depression and anxiety than ever before. We are seeing increased rates of drug use and addiction. The obesity rate is increasing, and only 20% of students meet physical activity recommendations. To quote the former U.S. Surgeon General, Jocelyn Elders, "You can't educate a child who isn't healthy, and you can't keep a child healthy who isn't educated. The two go hand in hand. Our children need to develop a solid foundation based in health in order to succeed both academically and in life. A credit reduction will only hurt our students, especially the most vulnerable students. So I urge all of you to really think about the example we are about to set for our students, and please vote no to the PE credit reduction. Thank you."
Thank you, Mrs. Eck. Thank you. Any other speakers tonight?
Dr. Burkhart, can I just
Yes.
say one thing? I just want to say how much I appreciated you guys coming to the academic affairs meeting, and I think Mrs. Heater did as well, and how articulate you guys were at the meeting, and how passionately and strongly you made your case. So I just wanted to let you know that that's appreciated by the members who were there.
Thank you. And I'm just Mr., but thank you. Any other speakers? Okay, we're going to move on with our agenda. If anyone wants to speak at the end of the meeting, there will be another period for public comment. Number 6, presentations / outside guests. Park project update and community garden. Tom Haravi, Megan Heistan, Jess Knoll, and members of DHS Planet. Mr. Haravi, you're up.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having us here today. I have a nice little update for you on where we are with raising money for the park project, and some guests here tonight to talk as well. So Mr. Ryan, if you would go ahead and advance, please. As you know, at the January board meeting, you allowed us to hang vinyl banners outside Danville Middle School advertising our first round of sponsors. They're listed on the right, and our advertisement banner on the left. And at the bottom are community partners who are helping to develop this project. Some of those people who are represented here tonight. We've also started a big social media and online push gearing up for, Mr. Ryan, Raise the Region, our first public fundraiser. It is hosted by the first, I'm going to screw this up, the First Community Foundation Partnership. Did I get that right, Mrs. Fitzgerald? Okay. It is a 30-hour, one-time-a-year event. It's the largest crowdfunding event of the region all year long. We were able to partner with the Danville Business Alliance, who will be donating all of their earnings from Raise the Region toward our project. So thank you very much to Rebecca Dressler for facilitating that. And thank you so much to everybody who helped get the word out, including administration who made Global Connect calls, Busy Little Beavers, the Business Alliance, Troop 47 Trading Company on Mill Street, our students, families, lots of community members helped to promote this. And Mr. Ryan, I'm really pleased to report we raised over $15,000 in 30 hours, becoming a top 10% earner of 333 nonprofits participating. The Danville Business Alliance also won an award for having the most growth in their donorship from last year to this year during Raise the Region. So thank you so much to everybody who helped support to push this out to the community. For anybody watching on YouTube, thank you so much. This brings our total amount raised year to date in cash, goods, and services to over $70,000. We are well, and we're in a really good position compared to when we came to you in November and said, please let us do something. So if you would, Mr. Ryan, please advance one more. We are not raising money to do nothing. We want to kick off our phase 1 process here 1 month from today, April 15th, with 40 native tree plantings in collaboration with a county-wide Montour area recreation event for trail cleanup. So thank you to Bob Stout. He's offering to come out with their equipment to dig holes for tree plantings for us. We're talking through the process of liability waivers and all of that sort of thing right now. Just to answer that question first. He's also donating some water barrels. He's helping us to organize some volunteers. We'll be working with students, scouts, master gardeners, employees, and community members on this day. We start at 9 a.m. So if any of you have a green thumb and you're available, come on down. We'll let you plant a tree. We are also looking to post some signs, including tree identification in ecological data signage and things related to our iron heritage. There are a couple examples of this on a future slide, so I won't labor on this, but thanks to Amanda McTarnigan for helping to facilitate this. She's a 6th grade math teacher and also an education specialist with the Keystone Wood Products Association. In a few minutes, you're going to hear from 2 other people, so I'm going to speed through my part as fast as possible. Mrs. Megan Highstand, our art teacher, is here. She'll be up in a minute. And Miss Ella Hummel, fresh from her district championship season on the swim team. She will be here in a minute to talk about our community garden. So let's go ahead and advance for the moment, Mr. Ryan. This is what we currently look at the middle school, and this is what we would like to look at. This is our first round of planting and building. On the left-hand side, Ms. Hummel over here will talk about the community garden, where we'd like to put it and why. And along the backdrop, we want to frame our area in some nice trees. All native plantings that should take very well. Mr. Ryan, one more slide. And this just details sort of our process. We're looking to go along the back side with our largest plantings that give some nice color year-round. The sycamores in the backdrop, they're large trees. They have nice bark in the wintertime, very aesthetically pleasing. Tulip poplars, also fast-growing large trees, really nice blossoms in the spring. It'll be a very nice deep picture for us. Smaller ornamentals up front toward the school, because we don't want big trees up on the building, of course, but also because Mrs. Highstand wants to talk about a really exciting mural project. So I'll let her go into that. On the right side with the conifers, the oaks and the maples, we would love to block out the site of the sewage treatment plant. As we know, even though they're super nice, we don't like to look at it. So if we will just advance a little bit more. The signage that we would like to post is being donated by KWPA in partnership with Sun Area Technical Institute and Bingaman & Son Lumber. They're taking thermally modified wood, which will stand up to the elements. They're creating painted metal signs and will be mounted on 4x4 posts. And there's a picture on the next slide. It's modeled after what's posted in Ryder Park up in Williamsport. They're really nice. They have the little gable on top. There's a nice amount of space for details. I'm really excited about how this could connect to curriculum in the school. I've been talking with some of our teachers, and they're talking about making scavenger hunts for the kids to go out and find the trees and to fill in facts about them. Mr. Wagner, our resident historian for the district, among other things, helped to create the Iron Heritage signs. One is posted there, and Ms. McTarnigan made all of our tree signs. Okay, Mr. Ryan. At this time, to keep things moving along, come on up, Mrs. Highstand. Here you go.
Thank you, everyone, for letting me come and present the part that I'm most excited about, which is the mural. Go ahead. Okay, so if you're wondering where we're planning on putting this, there is a very lovely beige upper portion. It's outside the art room facing the lovely park that's going to be there. And we would like to paint the whole thing. It's about 8 by 200 feet. And that's the plan. It'll be something that you can see from the park. Also, it's really visible if you're coming from Riverside on Route 54. Next slide. Okay, so we are working with the Perry County Council of the Arts. This is something I've been wanting to do for a long time, even before the park project came into play. But they offer artist residencies, and the artist that we're looking at is Katie Trainer. She's worked with a lot of different school districts. This is actually one of her murals on the left here. She does really bright colors. The thing I love the most about her is that she works with the students to come up with details of the plan and the process, and the kids will actually be painting the mural as well. If you're wondering who will be involved in the actual painting of the mural, it'll be the artist, the Danville Middle School students. So we're planning on doing this in September, so it would be students who have me in the first marking period, and then also art club students. Next one, please. Yeah. Okay, I just want to point out this is not one of her murals, but we are focusing on bright colors. I'd like to include some of the plant species that Tom talked about, and also maybe some native flowers. I think that would be really pretty. And we're also focusing on mental health awareness. And there's another reason for that besides the fact that it's empowering and positive and gives students pride and ownership over the mural. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so like I said, all students will be working on this, so there will be many hands in the pot. It's going to be a great opportunity for students to work with an artist who is currently practicing her art. I think that the whole process from planning to adhering them, it's going to be a really great opportunity for our kids. Next slide, please. Okay, if you're wondering where the funding will come from for this portion of our project, it's the Perry County Arts. They cover 50% of the cost, which is awesome. And Miss Knoll has been, we're still working on this part, but she has been talking to the CMSU services for grant funding, and part of that ties into the mental health awareness. So we're thinking words that inspire students, focus on positivity, and I am thinking also we'd like to do an Arts Night art auction. So I think that, and then, lots of details to be figured out still, but this is going to give us a really great start for the funding. Okay, next slide. If benefits for the students, I think it's going to look beautiful. It's going to be much nicer and more fun to look at than the beige wall that's currently there. Students are going to see a new artistic voice. I mean, they get me for 3 years in middle school, but it'll be nice for them to work with someone else. It's also a great example of a career in art. I think students, like art and wonder how that looks when you become an adult and you think about how you can become an artist, and this is a great example, a muralist. I think that when students are done with this project, that when they come back to Danville, with their kids in 15 years, 20 years, they're going to end up looking at this mural and being like, oh, I painted that flower, that tree, or, I was involved in this process, and I think that'll be really fun and memorable for them. Also, it's a great chance for our community to see what we do in the classroom. Helps me to get the word out that we're, making a difference not only inside the building, but also outside. And then also the mental health component, which is really important to all of us right now. Next slide. I think, I'm assuming that the school board is going to wonder what this is going to do for the classroom and how this relates to my curriculum. The studio Habits Are Mind are kind of my general overview of what I'm trying to teach the kids in very general terms. So when you think about how to express a theme like mental health awareness, or how to work with an artist in the community, all of these things are things that are important to my curriculum. And furthermore, 21st century skills, learning how to be motivated, to come up with a plan, to work together, to lead, collaborate, all these things are going to be part of what we're doing. So that is the very general and early stages of the mural project. Thank you. Tom, do you have anything else to add?
Thank you.
To that? Yeah.
Okay, at this time, Mr. Ryan, if you would switch over to the community garden slides. Miss Ella Hummel is on her way up here. She's usually joined by her partner Ryan Haas, who had to cancel on her at the last minute. He's engaged in the swimming finals over at Bucknell right now.
Can I ask you one question, Tom?
Yeah.
Did you guys manage to sell the speakers?
Actually, so the Uptown Music Collective in Williamsport just took one to their shop to test it.
Okay.
They're bringing it back tomorrow.
Because I didn't forget what I pledged, so
Hey, trust me, neither did I.
Okay. I was just wondering how much I was on the hook for.
Oh, I'll let you know. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm worried about.
Okay, so are you ready? Okay.
Hello, my name is Ella Hummel. I'm from the Danville Planet Recycling Club. On behalf of Ryan Hawes, who's unable to make it tonight because he's representing our school at the... Can you hear me now? Yeah, okay. Hi, okay, I'll start again. Hi, my name is Ella Hummel. I'm from the Danville Planet Recycling Club. And on behalf of Ryan Hawes, who's currently representing our school at the state swim meet, the Planet Club, Maddie Sowers, who's handing out papers currently, and myself, I'd like to introduce our proposal for the Danville School Community Garden as part of the Danville School Parks Project. You can move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So our goal is to build a lasting, planet-friendly community garden to encourage environmental sustainability within our schools. Thank you. So school-specific, a community garden would help educate and promote sustainable and agricultural practices throughout our school district. Additionally, through the school garden, we want to focus on social and emotional learning. So we're working with Mr. Haravi and a couple of the teachers at the middle school to create a program to involve students in the growing process of the garden and also educate them about the growing process and where their food comes from. Additionally, we plan to donate any extra food from the garden to Many Hands Helping Others and local food banks. And then community-wise, a community garden would help have numerous environmental benefits, as well as reducing our waste through a composting system and increasing access to fresh produce. Thank you. So we've already reached out to a couple of different clubs at the high school for their support and funding. From Planet, we've received a monetary donation, and then also volunteers to help with the planning of the community garden and eventual upkeep and maintenance of the garden. We're also partnered with FFA to build the wooden garden plots. From NHS, we received a donation of $2,000 and volunteers for eventual upkeep and maintenance of the garden. So we plan to start construction of the garden April 15th, same day as Mr. Haravi's planting all the trees. And this day will be, for the community garden at least, will be led by Planet FFA and NHS volunteers. Additionally, in the future, volunteers from these three groups will work to maintain the garden a couple of times throughout the year. We'd also like to start a program with the middle school to involve them in upkeep and maintenance of the garden. And obviously, members of the garden will be responsible for upkeep of their own plots. So this is a proposed layout we have for the garden. It is 75 feet by 40 feet, and with the current funding and resources we have, we can make 12 garden plots, 3 being accessible, meaning they're a little bit higher and have a little extra room around them. We also received a donation of a couple 100-gallon water tank from Mark for the water supply of the garden, and we plan to have use some pallets to create a compost system on the side of the garden. The garden will be surrounded by a 4-foot-high split-rail fence, and we left some extra room for future environmental projects or even more garden plots. This is our proposed location for the garden. So because of its location near the middle school parking lot and the footbridge, it's easily accessible by all members of the community. And we also left some room between the end of the garden and the track for any future projects with the track. Again, I want to reiterate how grateful we are to be working with the FFA and Ag program at the school. They're making us all the planters, the wooden planters, and they'll be made out of black locust, which is high resistant to rot and safe to use in garden settings, so hopefully it'll last a really long time. And then the system for awarding plots to interested members will be that interested members fill out a form to apply for the upcoming growing season. Then, if interest exceeds the number of plots we currently have, a lottery will be held on a set day for interested members to determine who gets which plots. There will be a separate lottery for members that specifically need use of the accessible plots. And then to make sure it's accessible and open to anyone in the community, regardless of their financial status, members will pay for their plots on a donation basis. So here's the cost breakdown for the garden. Our largest cost is going to be the fence at $4,100, with the total estimated cost of around $5,200. And as I mentioned before, we've received many generous donations from clubs at the high school. From Planet, they're estimated to donate around $750 for the garden. NHS very generously donated $2,000. We're working with a couple other school groups for additional donations. And the Danville Park Project has also volunteered to cover any additional costs. You have before you a copy of the plot renter contract, and this lines out the rules and expectations for all members of the community garden, and they'll have to sign and agree to that before having official ownership of a plot. So we hope with your support and approval that we'll be able to create this community garden within our school district and promote sustainability and agriculture practices within our schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just say, these guys designed this. They found the funding. They even negotiated with the fencing company. They're only charging materials. I mean, this is above and beyond their experience and age. They have done a tremendous job. So we're really excited about what they're doing, and yeah, excellent, guys.
Great. Thank you.
Are there any questions that any of us can answer tonight?
I don't have any questions, but I just have to say how amazed I am at what you guys just did and all of it. I think it's so unique what you're doing there, but just your passion to go above and beyond, all of you, for this, it's just really commendable. So
Thank
again,
you very much.
seriously.
Thank you.
To them? Yeah. Go ahead.
I know from working with the parents.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We've already cleared it with the borough and the sewer department. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. Yep. Yeah. Oh no, we're well away. We're well away. Yeah. Yeah. They've been with us every step of the way. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. No more presentations, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Number 7, school property and supplies. These are consent items. Board will take action to approve items 7.2 and 7.3. Please take a look at those quickly. There's an invoice and a pay app.
A motion.
We have a motion from Richard.
Second.
Second. Anybody have any issues with these as consent items? We're okay to move on them. Any comments or questions?
Can I just add the payment to Donnie Bauer is the final payout for that project?
That's the
as
middle
far as
school
I-
paving project, and that was complete, and it's now got substantial.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anybody? Okay, Terry, I think we can move on this one.
Mr. Clauser.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner.
Yes.
Dr. Green.
Yes.
Mrs. Heater.
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes.
Mr. Reichard.
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz.
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. Number 8, 8.1, athletics and activities, consent item. We will wrap 8.1, 8.2, 8.2, and 8.3 together. There's a soccer field rental and an out-of-state field trip.
Make a motion.
Motion.
Second.
Second. Anybody have any issues with these as consent items? I should have asked that first, I believe. Bless you. Okay to move on these?
So moved.
Okay, in a second. Any questions, comments? Terry?
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Dr. Green?
Yes.
Mrs. Heater?
Yes.
Mr. Huron?
Yes.
Mr. Reichert?
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz?
Yes.
Mr. Clauser?
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart?
Yes. 9.1 Academic Affairs, we have consent items once again. We're encompassing 9.2, 3, 4, and 5, the primary school handbook, Liberty Valley handbook, middle school handbook, and high school handbook together. Please take a look. Let us know if there's anything you'd like pulled from consent. And after that, we'll take a motion.
You grouping,
Motion to approve?
Are you
Motion.
grouping-
Just a second.
Are you grouping 9.1 in that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
9.1 is just the one that's referring to the next four, I believe,
Okay.
right?
Yes, so this is just handbooks together only right,
Right.
now.
It's
Oh,
handbooks
okay, sorry.
for the 4 buildings. Appreciate you getting them to us so early. That's really nice to have them in March. That's great. You got a motion?
Motion.
Second? Questions, comments? Terry?
Dr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Dr. Green?
Yes.
Mrs. Heater?
Yes.
Mr. Huron?
Yes.
Mr. Reichert?
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz?
Yes.
Mr. Clauser?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart?
Yes. Nine point six into reading K2 5 years quote. Looking for is the board will take action upon the recommendation of the assistant superintendent to accept the quote for the purchase of Into Reading K2 to 5 years from the Houghton Mifflin Harcourt Publishing Company in an amount not to exceed $78,072.41 as presented. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Any comment? Questions? Anything from your committee? We're good to go on this?
We're good.
Okay. Terry?
Dr. Green?
Yes.
Mrs. Heater?
Yes.
Mr. Huron?
Yes.
Mr. Reichert?
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz?
Yes.
Mr. Clauser?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart?
Yes. 9.7 PE requirements. The board will take action to approve a reduction in the minimum requirements for graduation for PE health from 1.5 credits to 1 credit and revisions to all necessary district documents to reflect the reduction in credits. Motion to approve. We'll die without a motion. Okay, we're going to move on. Terry, no vote, no motion. Finance, 11.1, February 2023 finance reports. Do we need action on these?
No, just report.
This is just for your information. 11.2, February 2023 cash receipts.
No.
The bills we do need to approve.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay,
yes.
here we go. 11.3, bills for payment, February 9th, 2023 through March 7th, 2023. Board will take action to approve the bills for payment for February 9th, 2023 through March 7th, 2023 as presented. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
I'll second.
Got a second? Questions, comments? Anyone? Okay, Terry?
Mrs. Heater?
Yes.
Mr. Huron?
Yes.
Mr. Reichert?
Abstain.
Mr. Vognetz?
Yes.
Mr. Clauser?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner?
Yes.
Dr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart?
Yes. 11.4, the CSIU budget. The board will take action to approve the 2023-2024 CSIU preliminary general operating budget as presented. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
I'll second.
Any questions or comments on the CSIU budget? I just want to ask, is there anything in this budget that we should pay particular attention to? Will it look pretty standard with last year and the previous year?
Yeah, it's pretty standard.
Okay. All right. Anyone else have any questions or comments on the CSIU budget before we vote? Gary?
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz,
Yes.
Mr. Clauser,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mrs. Heater,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. Number 12, personnel. 12.1 personnel consent items. Please take a look at 12.2 to 12.10, 12.10. Let us know if there's anything you would like pulled out from consent before we move on those. Any problems with any of them? Anyone want anything pulled? Okay, we get a motion to approve.
I motion.
Second.
Second.
Questions or comments? Terry?
Mr. Reichard,
I don't think there's anything in that.
Sorry,
Before we
Daryl.
go through 12, up to where?
12.10.
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz,
Yes.
Mr. Clauser,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mrs. Heater,
Yes.
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. Here, track and field coaches, 12.11. The board will take action to approve the track and field coaches for the 2023 spring season as presented.
Motion.
Second.
Second. Any questions or comments? All coaches had the opportunity to take part in the selection of the coaches in their sports.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Terry?
Mr. Vognetz,
Yes.
Mr. Clauser,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mrs. Heater,
Yes.
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. 12.12, the football coach. The board will take action to approve Carl Major as football coach for the 2023 season with a stipend of $8,000, which is step 10 on the schedule.
My motion.
Motion, Ms. Cooper. Second.
When is the time for comment, or help me get familiar with
Well, we need a second first,
okay.
and then we
All right.
open for comment. Second from Mr. Clauser. Questions, comments? Dr. Faulkner, I'm sorry.
No worries. I just wanted to acknowledge that what I'd heard from a lot of the folks here, I think there were some really heartfelt and genuine comments about, comments and concerns, I would say, about what is a very important position. I think, that's all I really wanted to say, is just acknowledge that I appreciate and heard what you guys had to say. So I appreciate you showing up to do that.
We appreciate so many people coming out. There's a lot of passion around the program. That's a great thing. Anytime you get a couple thousand people together on a Friday night in the community and have the success this program has had, certainly prompts the kind of reaction we have tonight. Everybody cares, and that's good, and we're glad to hear from all of you. And time to take any other questions, comments at this point.
I just want to publicly state that I'm actually struggling with this a little, and the reason I'm struggling with it is that I have been contacted probably by more members of the community surrounding this issue than any other issue I've ever had, but that I trust the administration's process. And so from my perspective, it's very difficult for me to decide what to do here, because I understand the concerns of the community, and they seem heartfelt and well-founded, and I want what's best for the kids in the football program and elsewhere. But I also know that the administration has done as good a job as they possibly can to allow people an equal opportunity in this situation and to try to assure fairness as much as possible. And I know there's a lot of emotions surrounding this, and to be frank, if I could abstain or get up and leave before this vote, I would do it without hesitation. I'm just being perfectly honest with the community that I'm here to serve. So I'm still not entirely sure how I'll vote, and it'll be what it'll be.
Anything else?
If I could just piggyback
Sure.
off of that, I think that as this quite literally being my first day, I feel like
don't entirely have all of the information. And this is me not speaking for anyone else about the decision that is to be made, and I think that's going to have to impact how I decide to vote.
Dr. Faulkner, I believe that you can abstain.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it would be perfectly reasonable for you to do that. I mean, that's your decision. You don't have to.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to abstain?
That's a little different.
But
You've
that
been
is
here for-
okay. It would be allowed for me because I don't want
Yeah.
to make a decision. This is a big decision, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to
Absolutely.
make
It's
it
your first
without
evening.
full information.
This is our solicitor at the end. That's
Okay.
Jen Danbeck, and my understanding is a new board member with lack of information, not being here through prior processes, it's perfectly reasonable for him to abstain. Correct. But you don't have to. It's your call.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Are we ready to vote?
Mr. Clauser,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner,
Abstain.
Dr. Green,
No.
Mrs. Heater,
Yes.
Mr. Huron,
No.
Mr. Reichert,
No.
Mr. Vognetz,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay. Coach Major, congratulations. You're in the audience, I believe. Is he here?
Yes.
Yes, you may, Coach Major.
Give me a chance to get to know me, and I'm telling you, a lot of fun, a lot of stuff. Very much for giving me this
Thank you, Coach. Item 12.13 is the one we need to modify. I'm going to find the language here. 12.13 amended is the board will take action to approve the employment of Michael Sokolowski as business manager for the Danville Area School District at a prorated salary of $118,000 with a starting date to be determined per the terms of an employment agreement between the parties pending solicitor review. Is that right? Got it. Okay. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Mr. Reichert, second, Mrs. Cooper. Questions, comments on Mr. Sokolowski? Okay. Terry?
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mrs. Heater,
Yes.
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Reichert,
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz,
Yes.
Mr. Clauser,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. 13.1, policy and insurance consent items. We're actually 13.2, 3, and 4. Want to take a look at those before we get a motion?
Or are we going to take 13 out? 13.3?
13.3.
I'm sorry. Right? Okay.
13.3.
13.3 we're omitting? Is that right?
Yes.
And we're going to vote for that separately then? Okay. So we're looking at 13.2 and 13.4. And 13.3 will be removed. Can I get a motion to approve 13.2 and 13.4 together as consent items?
Motion.
Got a motion and a second? You got
Second.
them?
I'm sorry, who's second?
Either one
They
of
both-
those, you, Mike.
Both over here. Comments, questions on the two consent items? Terry, go ahead.
Dr. Faulkner,
Abstain.
Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mrs. Heater,
Yes.
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz,
Yes.
Mr. Clauser,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. 13.3, the Head Start COVID-19 mitigation plan has been removed from consent. The board will take action to approve the COVID-19 mitigation plan for the Danville Head Start as presented. Motion to approve. I know there were some questions I'd heard over this. Yeah.
Is now the time they ask or do you motion to approve?
I think we need a motion in a second. Although if there's no motion, we don't even talk about it.
I motion to approve.
All right, second.
I'll second it.
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments? I caught a couple things at about 7 o'clock that people weren't real clear on this, so is there?
Yeah, and this is going to go for, I'm not sure, Jen or Ms. Marshall, I'm not positive.
Mrs. Marshall, yes.
Right.
Update that to reflect.
Do we, as a board, have an authority to remove that section of that?
So her wording in what she presented said vaccination. So what we'd be suggesting is that she amend that to say vaccination or weekly testing. And then with that amendment, then we could vote on that item.
And that would still be in compliance with the federal
And that would still be in compliance with their regulations. She just currently does have a 100% vaccination rate, so I think just didn't add it out of that. But by adding it, then it would protect future employees.
Okay. We're okay with that?
I just want to be sure, with amendments as presented, when do we present the amendments?
That would be the discussion that was.
I love to. I think that these vaccinations should be the choice of the individual. I don't want to mandate that on anybody. And that's kind of what I'm trying to accomplish
Understand.
right here.
Yeah, no, we understand. Yeah.
Yeah, so Mrs. Marshall will amend it to say or weekly testing.
Or weekly testing.
Correct. That's the amendment she will make to that plan.
Okay, and that, now that, it's not just up to you, though. It's got to go,
That language is okay? Okay. Okay. Okay.
what's your turnover rate like?
Well.
Ah. Okay, ma'am, and we're gonna. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Jen? What?
What I would recommend is then.
Okay. We already had a motion and a second. So,
So we can have if friendly amendments by the individual.
who made the motion initially?
Sandy, I think.
Sandy.
Would you be willing to amend your motion?
I would be happy if that's what the board wants to
Okay.
amend my motion.
So we're going to amend the motion to the language that the solicitor just proposed.
Perfect.
And we had a second.
I second.
Would you still
yeah,
second
sure.
that then?
Well, yeah.
With that amendment? Okay. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, now we can vote. Terry?
It's not even letting me vote. Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mrs. Heater,
Yes.
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz,
Yes.
Mr. Clauser,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. 13.5, calendar. The board will take action to approve the second reading of the 2023-2024 school calendar as presented.
Make a motion?
Second.
Second.
Comments or questions? Okay. We get a vote?
I'm sorry, I'm stuck here. I'm frozen or something. Okay, I'm sorry, who motioned?
Motion was, Darrell, you were the motion. Second was
I was the second.
Dr. Green, Mr. Reichert. Okay.
Mrs. Heater. Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz,
Yes.
Mr. Clauser,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. Calendar resolution and holidays. The board will take action to approve the calendar resolution to designate 5 additional days as local holidays, and the board's adopted 2023-2024 school calendar as official local school holidays as presented. Motion to approve.
A motion.
Second?
Second.
Can you explain that one real
And
quickly?
so this is a separate calendar for our 12-month employees that just indicates which days, like 4th of July, Labor Day, those kind of things, New Year's Day, are holidays for employees that work outside of the traditional school calendar.
Now I understand.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on 13.6? Okay, we're ready for a vote. Terry?
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz,
Yes.
Mr. Clauser,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mrs. Heater,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. 14.1, the bus driver list. Board will take action upon the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the bus driver list for the 2022-2023 school year as presented, pending the receipt of all required clearances and documentation. So that's the current list, right? Not next year's. All right.
Correct.
Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Comments, questions? Carrie?
Mr. Reichard,
Staying.
Mr. Vognetz,
Yes.
Mr. Clauser,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mrs. Heater,
Yes.
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. 15.1, board concerns items for the next meeting's agenda. Anything for April? Or for the committees to consider?
The only concern that I would have about anything is size of instruments that are brought on a school bus.
Okay,
They won't fit in the aisle.
yeah,
They got backpacks, they got roller things like going on an airplane. It becomes quite hectic at certain days
okay,
when they bring your instruments in and out. Because most things you bring on a school bus, it's supposed to sit on your lap or in
Right.
front of your feet.
Right.
This is not gonna happen.
okay.
I'm happy to talk to our band
Well, with the
teachers and find
superintendent.
out more about that. I have a daughter that plays the tuba, so I know this is one in my heart.
Instead of
Mr.
drums
Reichert.
and a 3-stage roller cage.
She does not take that on the bus, but
I'd like to bring up, just real quickly, I know at some point we had an allocation to the state, and it was an application about safety and a resource officer, and we had started some discussion, and I was just curious where we were, or if we could at least come back with some type of report on where that stands.
we are still awaiting response from the state, but we'll be happy to provide an update.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
We did that.
Yeah, I did say that. Okay, no problem. Any other public comment?
Marcy Kicka.
Hello.
I'm a phys ed teacher here at the district. I'd like to thank you all for the decision you made to keep the high school credits as is. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yep. And thank you for coming out and expressing your passion for what you teach. I think it's great, both of you. Appreciate it, and at the committee meeting. Any others? I think that's it. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Opposed?
Go now.